Hi, so in this video we will be talking about 8 cases that I think is most useful in this method. These cases usually looks like this. I can give you an example. And as you can see, for this kind of cases, if you wanted to solve it with a normal approach, you will need 5 or more logarithm, and which is not very effective. So if you learn the way that how to do it by combining several logarithms, you can only do with 3. So first, we're going to stick to our previous approach. So first, we're going to talk about how do we recognize this case. So this case is basically a peanut. Remember, we have already covered what is a peanut, which is a slice of top color, and there are 2 corners that are switched. And also there is a triple switch, which means the switch of 3 centers on the middle row. So if you see a peanut case, and there is basically a center that is correct and the rest are not, you will know that you encounter one of these cases, and there are in total 8 of them. So that's how you recognize these cases. These cases are fairly easy to recognize because peanut is a very special characteristic, and normally you won't confuse it with others. So now we're going to move on to our next problem, where to start. So for that thing, we're going to use something similar to our next video. Remember, we talked about the top corner and the lower corner of peanut case. So this video will also be using that. So basically, a top corner is this corner, and the lower corner is this corner. There's no specific reason for that. It's just my way of seeing it. You can see it other way around, but I mean, it's still the same thing, as long as you can recognize these two are different from each other. So when we are referring to top corner, we're going to talk about either you start the logarithm with this face, or you start it with this face. So otherwise, when we are talking about lower corner, you either start with this one or this one. Yeah. Okay. So now we are going to talk about where to start. So this is very easy in this case. You basically start with the opposite side with the opposite color. That might seem a little bit tricky. So basically, this is the opposite color. If you can recognize, this is a blue, this is a green, so they are opposite color. And you put it to the opposite side. You start with there. So in other words, you can also see it as you put the center, which is correct, either on the top or the bottom, never in front of you or the behind. So that is pretty obvious. We can raise another example, like this one. So this is the opposite color, so you will start with here. And also, if you see it the other way around, this is the top color, so this is the correct one, so you put it on the top, because you cannot put it in the bottom in this case. So yeah, that's how you do it. And next, we're going to talk about how do you start it. It is also really easy. So if you start with the lower corner, the bottom one, which means you either start with this face or you start with this face, you start with H. Otherwise, if you start with top corner, you start with here, you start with here, you start with an S. So let's give you an example of that. That will be like, if, for example, this one. This is the opposite color, orange and red. You turn it around, you start with here. So this is the top corner, because this one. So you're going to start with sledgehammer. And we're going to only left with another question, which is where to turn. It is also fairly easy. So you're going to turn to the side where the center is correct. Some of the logarithm we have already covered in the previous video. So in this case, this is the opposite color. You start with here. This is the lower corner. You start with sledgehammer and you turn to this side. And there's a little thing I want to say in this, because this is triple combination, so which means you are going to turn around twice, and it might seems that it is a little bit difficult to do that. So what I want to tell is, first, in this case, as you can see, the all case showcase that the 2 times you are always turning to the same direction. So basically, if you have a case and you start with here and you are going to turn upside for the first time, you know that when you do the second logarithm, you are going to turn to the upside also. And so it is a little bit difficult to predict what the last one is. So the thing is, if the first one, so these are constructed by ABB or AAB. So which means if you do a sledgehammer on the first time and the hedge slammer for the second time, you know that the third time has to be hedge slammer. And also, if you do the sledgehammer for the first time and sledgehammer for the second time, you will also know the last one has to be hedge slammer. So the only time you need to observe again is on the second time you are going to start to do a logarithm, either S or H. So that is something to remember, because that way you won't need to observe over here, right? And that can save you quite a lot of amount of time. And so in the end, we're going to cover all these 8 cases just to make sure you have a great understanding about this case. So the first one. So the first one with this. So you first recognize the peanut and the triple switch, and you are going to start with here because that's the opposite color. And this is the upper corner. You start with sledgehammer. Yeah. And here you are going to turn this way. So you turn here, and you can recognize, one way to see this is that this is actually a double combination we have already covered. So you can just do it from here. Okay. And the second one will be okay. So this one also opposite, you start with here, sledgehammer, and you are going to turn to that side. And also you can see it as a double combination. Alright, this one, opposite color, and this is the bottom corner, so you are going to start with hedge slammer, and that will be, yeah. And next one will be this one. So this is the top, this one, and you are going to start with here. So this is also the top corner, so you're going to do sledgehammer and turn this side. And this is also a double combination. Sorry. And next, this one. So actually we have already done that. That will be this one. So yeah, this one. If you're going to do this one, you're going to do here, here, here. Oh, sorry. I don't know. I mean, that's not very good, but you get the idea. For this one, top, opposite, you're going to start with hedge slammer, and you're going to turn to the up. And if you do sledgehammer here, you know the next one will also be sledgehammer. And we're left with 3 other ones. So this one, here's the opposite color. You put it here. This is the top corner. You're going to turn to the upside. So this one. And the next one would be, yeah, one of my favorite. For no apparent reason, but here's the opposite color. You turn to this side, you start with hedge slammer, And we're only left with another one. So for this case, you start with here, this is the top corner, and you turn to this side. So the basic idea is that you only observe at the first time, and you know where to start, how to start, and where to turn. And the second time you can see that how that is another double combination. So this would be pretty quick if you are already very familiar with this. But if you found that observing 2 times is very complicated and it is very time consuming, which it is, you can also treat this as a total algorithm. So there are many ways to predict the pattern, whether it is ABB or AAB in this case, because if once you know the pattern, you can predict from the first information. So if you really want to do that, I suggest you just start with reciting, because I have found several tricks to do that, but they are very complicated and they're very similar to recite them. So I think as long as you have a great understanding about double combination and triple ones, and you are familiar with how to start, there shouldn't be a problem. So when you need to do it really fast, you just remember these 8 cases and it's not a big deal. So I hope you find this video helpful, and I will see you next time.